And so it begins.
Honda, a car company which needs no introduction whatsoever, but I'll still do it anyways. Honda, aka the power of dreams, makes cars, motorcycles, ATVs, aircrafts like the Honda Jet, robots like the Asimo, power generators, marine engines, and personal watercraft like a jet ski. Honda is the biggest two-wheeler manufacturer in the world since 1959, a year when they entered the US market. Just imagine the kind of dominance they have on two wheels. So why is Honda failing when it comes to cars? To find this out, I actually went to multiple countries across the globe to understand what Honda is up to. They are still the small car company which they were around a decade or two ago, with a limited lineup and the same old nameplates. And in many places, the iconic Accord is no longer sold. Like in the case of the UK and in Thailand as well, the Accord is not sold. And talking about Thailand, did you know that Honda actually sells a city hatchback in Thailand?
I'll be damned.
Coming back to the Accord, its key rivals, the Toyota Camry as well as the Hyundai Sonata, have actually made a name for themselves in the cab market across the globe. Honda in the US is very different from what Honda is in Asia and European countries. In fact, they have a lot more models like the Pilot, which is actually a Hyundai Palisade rival. They also have something known as the Passport, which actually happens to be a rival to the Hyundai Santa Fe. Then there's the Ridgeline pickup truck, which is actually based on the Pilot and is a rival to the Ford Ranger. And then there's the Odyssey van, which I've personally driven, and trust me, it's amazing. It rivals the Kia Carnival. So is it just their Indian operations which are out of sync, or has Honda lost the plot globally as well? Turns out Honda has a very indifferent attitude to what consumers want. What Honda wants to do is exactly what Honda wants to do. They will simply do things which pleases them, not really what the customer wants at the end of the day. Case in point is the Honda E, which is an all-electric car made by Honda, which is high on flamboyance but doesn't really offer much. Especially the range is low and the price is high. It doesn't really make much sense, but then Honda wanted to make it, so they made it anyway. But before we dwell more into what Honda is or was, let's quickly dive deep into the history of Honda to understand what this brand is known for. It all started when Mr. Soichiro Honda made and supplied piston rings to Toyota in the late 1930s. Initially, Toyota rejected the piston rings because of poor quality. So Mr. Honda actually went to engineering schools and also visited a lot of factories across Japan to understand Toyota's quality control methods. And bang! Finally Toyota started to accept the piston rings from Honda. And when I say Honda, I mean Soichiro Honda, because Honda Motor Company was not yet there. I mean, it wasn't formed yet. But we all know what happened in the 1940s. Multiple world wars. The First World War was such a setback that Mr. Honda had to go and sell 40% of his company to Toyota to survive. But World War II was even worse. There was destruction of that piston ring factory. So what they did, they went to Toyota and sold the remains of the factory to them for an amount which would help Mr. Honda to start another company, the Honda Technical Research Institute, in 1946. What was this company doing? Well, it was strapping on engines to bicycles to make a motorbike of sorts. Yeah, 50cc engines. First they were getting it under license from someone, and then they ran out of units, so they started making their own. And after a couple of years, they liquidated that company. Those funds went in forming the Honda Motor Company, which we all know today, in 1949. Honda was initially making two-wheelers only. There was no focus on cars. But then in 1963, they decided, let's make cars as well. Their first car, the T360, was a pickup truck, which was launched in 1963, which was followed by the S500 Roadster, and neither of them worked. Their sales were low and they really did not make an impact. The lineup of cars was also very narrow. I mean, they didn't have any cars as such, and at a point Honda was like,
what are we doing here?
We should not make cars, probably we should just focus on motorcycles. And then they launched a car which changed them completely. Which brings me to the question, when you say Honda, which is the brand name, or rather the car which comes to your mind? City, right? No, it is the Civic globally. The Civic was launched in 1972 and completely changed the game for Honda. In fact, the Civic became so popular that Honda decided, well, we can actually make cars. And that is the game-changing point for Honda. If there was no Civic, there would be no Honda cars today. The Civic is one of the best-selling cars of all times, with almost 28 million units sold globally. It is in its 11th generation now, and the 8th and 10th generation models were actually sold in India. Now in the 1980s, Honda was actually selling decent number of cars in the US being one of the biggest automobile markets in the world. This is 1980s, where Mercedes and Audi as well as BMW had made a huge impact in the luxury car space. Now Honda couldn't really compete with them because although the brand was known for reliability, people also associated Honda as being affordable and not luxurious, and that's when Honda decided it's time to change something, and bang, in came Acura. Yes, Honda was the first Japanese car brand to launch a luxury arm of its regular cars. And then obviously Nissan followed with Infiniti, Toyota followed up with Lexus, but yes, Honda was there first and others actually followed them. But what is Honda actually known for? Engines, of course. In fact, VTEC, we've heard this famous phrase,
VTEC just kicked in, yo!
because VTEC brought more marketing might to Honda than they could ever imagine. Did you know Honda is actually the world's biggest manufacturer of internal combustion engines, making more than 1.4 crore units every year? I know that's because they are very dominant in the motorcycle space, but still 1.4 crore, that's 14 million internal combustion engines every freaking year. That's Honda for you. The 80s and 90s actually belonged to Japanese car brands like Honda and Toyota, and they were very strong globally. However, in India, since everything is almost 10 years delayed, Honda was very strong in the 2000s in the Indian market. Now, Honda's illustrious global history cannot be covered in one video, so we'll quickly circle back to India. Honda established operations in India in 1995, and their first car, the City, was launched in 1998. It was an instant success because the only other rival to the Honda City was the Mitsubishi Lancer. Indians were actually deprived of good cars, and the City nameplate was actually revived because there were two generations of the City which were sold previously in the 1980s, but this time Honda decided, let's make an Asia-specific model in the form of the City. The Asian-specific City was actually a Civic underneath, the 4th generation model, and Honda actually discontinued the 4th generation of the Civic before this reincarnated City was launched. So Honda was actually giving Asian countries Purana Mal, but God, we loved it. After its launch, the City got a facelift really quickly, and with the facelift came the magic VTEC power. So Honda had 3 engines in the City. There was the 1.3 liter hopeless engine.
I wouldn't say hopeless, it was actually quite good.
Then there was the 1.5 liter producing 100 horsepower, and of course there was the 1.5 VTEC producing 106 horsepower. That's 6 horsepower more, which felt like 600 horsepower more. Revving the motor, revs all the way to 7,500 Newton, and off we go. My goodness, the kind of torque steer on offer, my lord, that's absolutely insane. And the speedometer goes all the way to 60 kilometers per hour right away. Along with that, they also slapped on a rear spoiler, gave it twin tailpipes and 14-inch chrome alloy wheels as well. In fact, even today when I look at a City from that era, I can still make out whether it's the VTEC or the non-VTEC. Now this City VTEC instantly became an enthusiast delight overnight, and then Honda decided, let's launch the Accord, which was followed by the CR-V as well. Unfortunately though, in 2003, Honda decided to bring in the 2nd generation of the City, which completely lost the character of the City. You know, the dolphin shape, or you can call it the NHC, which is the new Honda City, which came with a hopeless 1.5 liter engine, which came with an IDSI engine. No, there was no VTEC. VTEC came in later, which was producing just 77 horsepower, but it was man maximum machine minimum concept with a cab forward design and a very roomy interior. Later on, obviously Honda made VTEC standard across the City lineup. Soon, the Honda City became the dream of every middle class Indian because it was just so desirable, everyone wanted one, and that was the sign of success. If you drive a Honda City, you are successful. I'm obviously talking about the 2000s. Today, people dream of the Toyota Fortuner. Anyways, Honda did not lose any momentum.
Keep going.
They decided to launch the Civic in 2006, followed by the 3rd generation of the City in 2008. This meant Honda had the best sedan, the best big sedan, the best biggest sedan, and the best monocoque based crossover SUV. Basically, I mean to say Honda had the best C, D, D plus segment sedans in the form of the City, Civic as well as the Accord. And then in 2009, the movie Wake Up Sid was released, and now everybody wanted a Honda CR-V. Honda then launched the Jazz in India, the very first true premium hatchback in the country. Now imagine a car company having 5 cars in its lineup and all of them are hugely successful. Okay, the Jazz wasn't really hugely successful, but the other 4 models were hugely successful.
You know what? That man, I'm sick of this koala hugging telling me
So how do you go downhill from there? Not at all difficult when you are Honda, where ego and pride comes before customer requirements. The market saw a shift towards diesel vehicles, and Honda as usual was caught napping. City sales started to decline, and for the very first time in 12 years, the City lost its dominance to the Hyundai Verna, which actually came with a diesel engine. Honda also went ahead and discontinued the Civic, CR-V and Accord because these cars lacked a diesel engine, and that really plummeted their sales. In fact, all their rivals were offering a diesel engine. So Honda could no longer sell its global models in India like the CR-V, Civic as well as the Accord because the lack of diesel engines, so demand had really gone down.
And
In hindsight, that was actually a good thing because these 3 cars didn't really have functioning airbags, which we only realized 10 years later. Thank you, Takata. Thank you. Now, Honda's strategy was changing. Honda decided it's time to launch emerging market-specific products, which started with the Brio in 2011. This was followed with the launch of the very first diesel model, the Amaze in India in 2013. Now, this had a very un-Honda-like engine because this diesel engine wasn't refined, it wasn't smooth, it was quite loud, and there was no top end whatsoever. But people loved this engine because it fit the criteria of kitna deti hai very well. It was the most frugal diesel engine in the Indian market at that time. So Honda took this very engine and plonked it in the city the very next year. So in 2014, the fourth generation of the City was launched, and it was an instant success because the City obviously has a very strong fan following, and with the VTEC engine on one side and the diesel on the other side, you got a mix of performance as well as efficiency. So the City was back to its good old days of dominating the segment.
I'm back.
In terms of sales, I mean. Honda's strategy clearly changed from being a global car maker in India to being an emerging market-specific car maker in the Indian market. The Brio and Amaze gave birth to the Mobilio MPV in 2014 and the BRV SUV in 2016. These cars was an effort by Honda to offer cost-effective cars to the Indian market, but all of them tanked, other than the Amaze of course, and for good reason. Although they were emerging market-specific cars with expectations of emerging market-specific pricing, that wasn't really the case.
Meaning what?
Honda was still selling these cars at a premium when compared to rivals and under-equipping them.
Sell.
Thankfully though, Honda brought back the Jazz in 2015, which was after the Mobilio was launched and just before the BRV was launched. So it was launched in 2015, whereas the other cars were launched in 2014 and 2016 respectively.
Whatever.
But that doesn't matter. What matters is finally we got a car which was global market specific. I'm saying the Jazz is global market specific because obviously it's sold in a lot of Asian countries, but it's also sold in the UK, and UK is a developed country. And then started the SUV wave. Now I'm referring them to SUVs, but they are jacked up hatchbacks at best. So the EcoSport, Nexon and Brezza put pressure on Honda to bring out its own sub 4 meter compact SUV. So what did Honda do? They actually took the Jazz and jacked it up to bring out the WRV in 2017. It was a half-hearted effort. In 2018, the second generation of these emerging market products were launched, globally of course. In India, they launched the Amaze, the second generation model. But the new Brio was so good that Honda decided, it's too good for India, let's not bring it here. And it actually gets worse from here. In 2018, the Indian market was very clear. We do not want a D-segment sedan. We don't want to drive sedan. We want to drive SUVs, period. End of story. So Honda decided, this is the apt time. Let's launch the 10th generation of the Honda Civic here.
Seriously?
In the same year, Indians were very adamant. We want to drive real SUVs. Like obviously the Fortuner turns out to be a real SUV in the real sense because body on frame platform, rear wheel drive, 4-wheel drive of course, but otherwise with 2-wheel drive, it's rear wheel drive. Indians did not want a crossover SUV which was based on a monocoque platform.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
So Honda decided it's the apt time to launch the CR-V here, basically bringing back both the Civic and CR-V in the Indian market. The Civic naturally tanked. When I say tanked, I mean it really did not sell in good numbers. Honda got the gearbox options completely wrong. Where there should have been an automatic for the diesel, the petrol was actually an automatic and the diesel was a manual. The gearbox options needed to be swapped, but that was not the case. And the beautiful VTEC engine was completely spoiled with the CVT gearbox in the Civic.
What kind of crackhead terminology is that?
See, I told you, Honda really doesn't listen to customers.
I'm gonna boycott that place.
Clearly, the market wanted SUVs, and instead of launching the HRV or the Vezel, they're technically the same vehicles actually. Honda decided, let's launch the iconic Civic here. If Honda had actually launched the HRV in India in 2018 or 19 or even in 2020, the Creta's sales wouldn't be what they are today. But Honda being Honda decided to do whatever it felt like. In fact, this lack of change with Honda is the reason why they almost went bankrupt in the 1990s. You see, developed markets were shifting to SUVs in the 1990s and Honda simply refused to change. And that's the reason why Mitsubishi almost came close to taking over Honda, which was closing towards bankruptcy. Mitsubishi had the Pajero and the Pajero was very famous, and being an SUV, a real SUV at that, it really captured a lot of the market and brought in huge profits for Mitsubishi. But Mitsubishi is also a hopeless car company, something we will detail in another video. Back to Honda.
Shit.
2020 saw Honda launch the 5th generation of the City. And at the same time, they decided, let's keep selling the old models simultaneously. I mean, why would they do that? Well, simply because when they do that, they can push the very boundaries of pricing. Which brings me to a small story. In 2018, I got a chance to speak to the Honda India CEO. And this was a very casual conversation, and I asked him straightforward, why are Honda cars priced at a premium? because I felt that way, that for the price, they're not offering you the same level of features which maybe Hyundai does. So his reply was something which really shocked me. He said, our cars have QDR. Do you know what QDR means? Quality, durability and reliability.
When did this happen?
I didn't say anything at that time, but thought to myself, which rock is Honda living under? I am the tallest man in India. What? Well, if Honda can claim in its press release in the very first line that it is the leading manufacturer of premium cars in India, then even I can claim everything. Because firstly, Honda does not lead in terms of sales, and secondly, Honda is not a premium car maker. I don't know why they're misleading everyone with this thought, because if they are a leading manufacturer of premium cars, or rather a premium car maker, then what is Volkswagen, Skoda, which actually have premium cars in their portfolio and yet do not claim such things? The QDR advantage which Japanese brands had in the 1990s is no longer valid, because today a Hyundai or Kia is making equally reliable vehicles. You can't keep charging customers for your history. You are not Lamborghini, you are not Ferrari, huh?
I mean, who the are you? Get used to it.
Anyways, back to 2020. This year saw the COVID crisis, and Honda, being a conservative company, decided to shut one of its plants. Yes, the Greater Noida plant, which was actually assembling the Civic as well as the CR-V via CKD route. And bang on, we are back to square one. Honda no longer has a global model in its India portfolio. Honda does run away like this. It happened in 2008 due to the global recession. Honda abruptly decided to call it quits with its F1 operations and decided to sell the team to the manager of that particular team, which was Ross Brawn at that time, for just $1. Yes, they made a race-winning car and just gave it away like that. In fact, that very same car won World Championship next year in the form of Brawn GP, and then Mr. Ross Brawn laughed away to the bank because he sold this very company, or rather team, to Mercedes-Benz, or rather Mercedes-AMG, the very next year. And then, Mercedes has won like 8 championships in the past 10 years. Honda also decided to quit F1 in 2021 after making a fantastic engine which actually powered Max Verstappen to the World Championship last year. In fact, Honda is assisting Red Bull in developing this very same engine which actually won both the titles this very year. So they do all the work and they don't even get credit. Honda. Today, Honda's car portfolio in India consists of just 2 models, the Amaze and the City. And the City also gets a hybrid version, which is great, but isn't enough to bring in Honda the volumes. The Jazz and WRV are on their way out, and hopefully we get the new generation models soon, because Honda is still selling us the outdated Jazz in India, even though the global model, or rather the new model, is being sold globally since quite some time now. And the Jazz is powered by the hopeless 1.2-liter petrol engine. The diesel has been discontinued in the Jazz. And the shocking part is that how can Honda, a company which is known for engines globally, not be able to make a half-as decent small capacity petrol engine? In fact, the real differentiator between Honda and Suzuki is the 1.2-liter petrol engine. People buy Suzuki cars because of the engine, which is not only decent in terms of performance but also very frugal. And it's just not in India. Even globally, the new 1.5-liter turbo VTEC engine is one of the most issue-prone engines ever, which is shocking considering it's made by Honda, the king of engines. And as far as the WRV goes, I have a lot of things to say about that car. It's shocking that a car at that price does not have a rear center armrest, does not have adjustable headrest, does not even have a charging port or rear AC vents. How can there be such glaring oversight?
Ignorance is bliss.
How can Honda not see such a basic thing in such an expensive crossover vehicle?
They stealing their money, they stealing our money.
So why is Honda on a decline? Well, I can tell you a lot of reasons, but I'm sure you know most of them by now. So I'm just going to list 5 of them right now for you. Number 1, not ready to experiment or risk. Honda as a car company wants to play it safe all the time. They don't want to experiment. They don't want to be the first mover. They just want to take it very easy. And that is a big bummer. And that is the reason why the car lineup in India is very small. I mean, think about it. Honda and Hyundai entered India at the very same time. Around the same time actually. And today, Hyundai is selling almost 6 times as many cars as compared to Honda. Because Honda sold 9,543 units last month. Meanwhile, Hyundai sold 58,006 units. Being a huge Honda fan, I actually spoke to Honda Car India to understand why they are lagging in terms of sales and why they're not getting more products in the Indian market and why the Civic and the CR-V were discontinued. They told me that their focus right now is on restructuring their India operations with a focus, or a rather heavy focus, on profitability rather than on volumes. That's something I don't understand. I understand profitability is something which every company chases, but saying that you're not really interested in having higher sales is something hard to believe, because every company wants to sell more of their products because sales is everything for them. So when obviously they're not able to do good sales, they're just hiding under that tree saying that no, we don't care about sales. Don't compare us with Hyundai. They have a different journey. We have a different journey. The fact is that Honda obviously made a lot of wrong decisions, because of which I'm going to cry right now. Number 2, emerging market strategy. Honda actually ruined its reputation by offering us emerging market specific products but not really at emerging market specific pricing. Toyota did the very same with the Etios twins, and you know how we Indians actually reacted to these vehicles. We simply did not buy them. Take that, fake JDMs. Number 3, poor product planning. I can't even go ahead and blame the product planning team at Honda India because I don't think they even have a product planning team, because how else do you justify such wrong decisions time and again? Number 4, average quality. Honda can go ahead and blow the QDR whistle as much as they like, but honestly, their cars don't have the best quality.
Take a big step back and literally your own face!
Now let's take the City for example. The first 4 generations of the City were really prone to rusting. And then if you talk about older Honda cars, whether it's the City, whether it's the Civic, or even the Accord for that matter, all of them have steering rack issues which crops up over time. And then let's not even get to the infotainment system, because the infotainment system in Honda cars is one of the worst in the market right now. How difficult is it for Honda to make a decent infotainment system? Apparently very difficult.
Or laziness.
Number 5, smarter consumers. You know, the customer today is very smart, he's very well read, and he's also global. He understands what are the models Honda is offering globally, and he understands why this particular model is being given to him. Because you can no longer chip cow older models to the Indian market and think, yeah, the consumer will believe in our Honda brand and buy it. No, that doesn't work anyways. And then obviously there are plenty of options in the market right now.
Let's see the rest.
Yes.
I honestly feel really sad making this video because I'm a really big fan of Honda, especially VTEC. But Honda is disappointing me time and again. It's disappointing not only me, it's disappointing you, it's disappointing its shareholders, it's disappointing everyone by not adapting to change. You know what I love about Honda? Honda is the only car brand which has the freaking balls to stand on its own. Yes, Honda is the only car company which is still solo, unlike the other car brands which are going on a dating spree. Today, Suzuki and Toyota have a collaboration, and then Citroen, Jeep, part of the largest Stellantis group, of course, the PSA and FCA tie-up, which also involves a lot of other car brands. And then we know that Mercedes has Smart, BMW is a Groove with Mini and Rolls-Royce as well. Then there is, of course, Hyundai Kia Group, which are together. Jaguar, Land Rover and Tata Motors are together. Mahindra had SsangYong, now they have Pininfarina. So all these car brands have a tie-up at one or the other level. But Honda, no. Honda is completely solo. Honda believes it doesn't need the support of anyone else to make amazing cars.
One army, a real army.
And they do make amazing cars, but somewhere they have lost their roots. Oh wait, I also forgot to say Volkswagen Skoda, but then that group is huge. The Volkswagen group is maddeningly big. The Renault, Nissan, Mitsubishi Alliance, but everybody has forgot those brands, so then no problem.
I can't November.
So what lies ahead for Honda? Honda does plan to replace the WRV, hopefully with this WRV which you see on the screen right now. They are planning to launch a Creta rival.
Excuse me.
Finally, which will be based on the Amaze platform, sharing a lot of bits with the City as well. But isn't that a case of too little, too late? I hope not. I don't understand that when Honda can make such brilliant cars like the City, which is kind of class leading, what is stopping them from making more class leading cars or more better cars in better segments and more segments, and whatever that means? I mean to say that why can't they have more cars in different segments which are as good as the City? The funny part is the City was Honda's entry-level model when they entered India long back in the late 90s, and today the City is their flagship model. Unbelievable, right? If you like this vlog and want to see more such videos, do leave a comment below, like this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more such case studies. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.